Well, hey guys, if you haven't noticed, we're not on the Spyder. Sometimes I know it's hard to tell, but there's a reason, and the reason is it's cold. It's January, and we're lightweights, so we're in the SUV today. Where are we heading? We're heading over to the Great Dismal Swamp. You know, the Great Dismal Swamp is a significant land feature in our area. It's one of those things that it's very large. It's just to the west of our area where we live in, and it sort of takes up a lot of real estate. It's hard to get around. There's only a couple of roads that go around it, so if you want to leave our home area, home base of Virginia Beach, there's only a couple of ways out, because one of the reasons is the Great Dismal Swamp. And I have been over it probably hundreds and hundreds of times in an airplane. I have been around it a lot, just driving around it, sightseeing. I have never been in the Great Dismal Swamp. So that's where we're at today. It's a National Wildlife Refuge. It's got some hiking trails. There's also a state park, which we're going to visit. But that's our destination today. We got a picnic lunch with us. And we're also going to visit Lake Drummond. Lake Drummond is a very large feature in the swamp. And I'm going to see it from ground level for the first time. Interesting note. Well, I'll tell you in a minute about what the military used to do to Lake Drummond in years gone by.
It's going to be a great day.
You get a $5 daily fee to enter the park, unless you happen to have the National Park Pass, which is good for national wildlife refuges and national monuments, and then it's free. I think my pass has now paid for itself almost 3 times. Well, it took me 63 years, but I finally made it to the inside of the Dismal Swamp. And this is probably the best time of the year to come, because there are no bugs.
It's not too dismal.
Not too dismal. A lot of hiking trails, a lot more hiking trails than I thought they'd be out here. We were looking at some deforestation, and it looks like from the path that a tornado has come through here. And we're starting to see some trees down, because this is a National Wildlife Refuge. They don't do logging and they don't do clearing. So it looks like this is an area where these trees are pushed over and broken off, and it looks like a tornado has just cut a swath right through here. And it goes in a line up to where we just made a right turn, and back the other way. We saw it there too, and they're all pushed over in the same direction and broken off. That was a pretty good sized tornado that came through here.
We did have some doozies this year.
You know, this area is not that prone to tornadoes, but we do get a couple.
Well, Suffolk, particularly.
Suffolk. Now, this area has a very unique geology. I don't remember the time frame. I want to say about 9 million years ago. This area was a shallow sea, the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, going all the way up to the area called the Piedmont region. I think the beach was in the Piedmont region, and a giant asteroid impacted to they think the epicenter was right where the town of Cape Charles is, and up on the eastern shore, and that formed the Chesapeake Bay. It fractured the rock underlying this region, and for years the city of Chesapeake used to have a terrible time trying to get water into their reservoirs that wasn't salty. They didn't understand why it was salty, because they're pretty far inland, and they brought some core samples, and the bedrock is just shattered, which is evidence of an impact. A gas company who was testing the area for the possibility of natural gas harvesting along the eastern seaboard, did a geological map, and they found the outline of a crater. If you look at the Chesapeake Bay and you put Cape Charles as the epicenter, you'll see rivers radiating from that. The Elizabeth River in our city, the James River, and on, and those rivers look like fracture lines from possibly an impact. And what's really interesting, up around Richmond and just beyond Richmond is referred to as a seismic zone. They have minor earthquakes up there regularly, and if you follow the crack of the bedrock of the earth to where it intersects the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, that's a natural fold and a natural place for minor earthquakes to occur. So that probably explains those earthquakes. I'm not a geologist, but it sounds good to me. One of the oddities of the Lake Drummond is it was used as a military bombing range back in, I believe it was 30s and the 40s. There's a military airfield just on the other side of the swamp, which I'll insert a map showing that where the airfield used to be, and it was a designated bombing range. And this is the first time I've ever actually seen it from ground level. As a pilot, it was so close to my home base airport that I used to, every time you take off, you would see it. It's also used as a reference point on navigation charts for people coming into the area, and it's just neat to see it for the ground for the first time.
So we're in the Underground Railroad Pavilion here at the Dismal Swamp, and it's always fascinated me that slaves escaped, and some went through the Dismal Swamp to head north, and others actually lived in this area, which is just amazing to me because I can't imagine how difficult and rough it would have been in this swamp with snakes and mosquitoes and bears, and how difficult it would be. Well, I guess they used primitive tools and you know, hunted and fished and things of that nature. But I guess, you know, when the prize is freedom, you're willing to do most anything. But I just am in awe of the folks who they, according to the signage, they were marooners, and escaping slavery was the grand marinage. So the ultimate adventurous spirit.
And with 50,000 acres of swamp, it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people can hide back here, live back here, and make their way. To give you some idea of how dense the swamp actually is, there are still airplane crashes that remain unfound. Here we are, just a few miles from a large metropolitan area of the Hampton Roads region, and there are planes that have gone down in these woods that nobody has ever found. A lot of them were military planes because we have such a military presence in the area. A lot of civilian airplanes. A lot of civilian airplanes are still here, even because of the economics of trying to remove a crashed airplane. That most of the airplanes, if they crashed into the swamp, they are marked and left behind. So there's probably about I think a dozen airplane crashes here in the Dismal Swamp. There's also a B-17 bomber from World War II era. It is in the southeast area, and it was said that up into the 1950s it was still visible from the air, but the swamp has simply overgrown and taken it down, and I'm not really sure of the exact location. But yeah, a B-17 bomber still crashed here in the Great Dismal Swamp. Yeah, so a big old 4-engine B-17 bomber still remains here as a crash site in the Great Dismal Swamp. We leave the west side of the Dismal Swamp and loop around to the east side and visit the Dismal Swamp State Park in North Carolina. This is the only location in the Dismal Swamp which has a visitor center. So Miriam has talked me into doing another hike after lunch. But the nice thing is the park closes at 4:30, no exceptions, because they will actually close the bridge or open the bridge so boats can get through. And if we want to leave the park, we have to swim across the canal. So or spend the night. So we'll be out of here by 4:30.
Can't believe you're hiking without your pack. You're slipping. Your standards are slipping.
My standards are not slipping, babe. I still got you.
Good answer.
So we came across this display and I joked and said, oh look, a still for making liquor. And it is. There's your boiler, your cooker, your thumper, your dry barrel.
Condenser flake stand.
Yep.
Whatever that is.
Apparently, the Dismal Swamp. Apparently, the Dismal Swamp was a hotbed of making illegal or illicit liquor during Prohibition. So, who knew? I didn't know that, and I've lived here all my life.
Also called.
Well, guys, we made it back to the house after the nice drive today. And what was the your favorite part of the drive today?
Oh, it just felt good to be out and about. Outdoor therapy.
Yes, it did. And even though it was a little chilly on the hike and the picnic, it makes it worthwhile to come back to the house and have a nice single malt scotch waiting for you in a nice warm home. So I guess we're going to wind it down.
Yep.
Call it a day.
Sleep well tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
Y'all take care.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up.
If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Feel free to leave a comment below.